This is What's Wild in New Hampshire by wildlife biologist Eric Orff. Today, I'm at the Audubon Center in Concord. Awesome place here. Over here, we have a bald eagle and a couple of barred owls. And there's the barn owl there. I saw the sign. Barn owl, well, he's not here today. And I'm going to talk today with Chris Martin. He's going to give us an update on this year's success of some of our birds that he works with very closely, like the peregrine falcon. They don't necessarily monitor some of the others like ospreys and bald eagles anymore, but I bet he knows a lot about them. So Chris, how long have you been working at Audubon?
Well, I've been here for over 31 years
Wow.
now, since around 1990.
Nice.
It's been a great place to work, and it's neat to be able to be involved monitoring raptors statewide.
Okay. You know, Audubon has a small staff, and I mean, I've worked with most of the members here. Diane DeLuca in the mid 80s, early or late 80s and 90s on the terns when they were on Great Bay. We'd spend a day each year monitoring the tern population, which was a total of 8 nests, and that has changed. You might mention that.
Things have changed.
And Carol Foss, of course, she's been here a little bit longer than you, I think.
She hired me in 1990.
Did she?
Yeah.
So today we want to talk about some of the raptors, I guess. Is that the
That's my specialty.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
So how, this summer of 2021, spring and summer, we went into the summer in a drought, and which changed dramatically in July. Did that impact the birds this year?
The switch from dryness to heavy precip actually didn't cause much of a problem because most of our raptors nest fairly early, and the ones that we track at least were at the point of fledging their young at that point, or even already fledged. So the precip didn't change much. And actually the dry helps in the nesting season because one of the threats we deal with is heavy rain or even late season snows.
Cold rain especially, yeah.
And late season snows.
Right. Yeah, snow, yeah. So tell us a little bit of history about, say, falcons. Where did it start and where are we at?
Well, peregrine falcons were on the federal endangered list back in the 1970s and 80s, and there were no peregrines nesting in New Hampshire until early 1980s. But we've been monitoring their population for over 40 years now, trying to document each nest site statewide. This year we had 40 young peregrines produced from 17 successful nest sites. And that's out of a total of 26 pairs.
I was going to say there's a couple of dozen pairs that are...
Yeah, and the 26 pairs is the highest number we've had in the recovery period. And the 40 young is the second highest we've had over the course of all those years.
Now, we were talking earlier that the day I spent with John Lanier up on Eagle Cliff up there in the Franconia Notch, and he determined that we had a peregrine falcon nesting in the early 80s. So I didn't know that was like one of the first nests here in eastern North America?
Yes, it was. There was a hacking process releasing young birds that were captively raised to try to restore this population that had been wiped out. And so there were some successful nests on human-built towers in the marshes and in the mid-Atlantic states. But all the historic cliff sites in New England were unoccupied in the very early 1980s. And the first successful nest was documented in Franconia Notch in 81.
81.
So,
and I was there that day.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Thank you, John Lanier. I'm looking up for that because he's watching over us.
Yeah.
So the falcons, you've got 26 pairs and 17 that were successful producing. How many young this year?
40 young.
40 young. Wow, that's got to be a big number.
It's the most we've ever had in any one year was 42.
What a grand
40
year.
is a great year. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
So a nice recovery there when they're well on their way.
Yeah.
All right. I know you don't monitor eagles as much, but tell us a little bit about eagles. What's going on there?
We do continue to monitor bald eagles. The work we do with the Fish and Game Department now involves monitoring sections of the state annually because our population has grown so extensively. Bald eagles have been increasing their breeding population, doubling it about every 6 to 7 years for the past 20 or 25 years.
Nice.
So we've gone from 10, 12, 15 pairs 25 years ago to 80.
Get out. 80 this year?
In New Hampshire this year.
Wow.
And that's not counting the ones on the Vermont side of the Connecticut
Okay.
River, because
Okay.
there's a number of additional pairs.
Wow.
I could show you a map that gives you that would really blow your
That's
socks
hard to
off.
believe, and
Yeah.
and you know, and you and I have actually lived through that transition. There were no bald eagles when I started my career 40 years ago.
Yeah, when I was hired to work for New Hampshire Audubon, there was one nesting pair of bald eagles, and you know where that
Yeah,
was.
up on Umbagog.
On
Yeah,
Umbagog.
and we had a field trip with fishing game staff
All
up
right.
to see it at a distance.
Hang on to your hat. Lake Umbagog has 5 separate territorial pairs of bald eagles.
Wow.
Yeah, so there you go. That gives you
Isn't
some
it
idea.
often? Wow. Any sense of how successful nesting was this year?
Yeah, we had out of the 80 territorial pairs, I think around 67 of them we know of where the nest was.
Okay.
and what happened at it. And I think about 53 out of those 80 pairs actually had successful nests.
Nice.
Total of young actually equals the total number of pairs. 80
Wow.
young.
So twice as many as the
81
Falcons.
young fledged.
Wow, wow.
So,
And we should mention right now that a lot of that observation actually occurs by your volunteers, doesn't
yeah,
it?
and
Audubon and Fish and Game count on our volunteers. And a big shout out to the volunteers.
absolutely. Without the volunteers covering these sites, we wouldn't get that kind of information.
Hey, one person, you're looking at them.
Yeah.
You can't do it all. Thank you, volunteers. All right, how about ospreys? I mean, they've been on the upswing. Same thing. Seems like Umbagog was the osprey place back in the 80s.
In the 70s and 80s, it was the only place in the state that had documented nesting ospreys. And it took until the 90s for them to settle in the Great Bay Area. And then after that, we got them in the Connecticut Valley and in the Merrimack Valley. One of the hotbed spots now is the Lakes region,
Okay.
where Ian McLeod at the Science Center actually volunteers for Audubon and Fish and Game to monitor ospreys in the Lakes region.
Okay.
He keeps a regional tally.
Okay.
But statewide, I have a informal list now of osprey nest sites that's over 160 locations.
I can't
No,
believe that.
I'm serious.
That number absolutely shocks me. I was going to guess maybe 25 or 30.
Probably 30 to 40% of those are on structures that you might not
Okay.
think would be
All
osprey
right.
structures.
That is so
Cell
awesome.
towers,
Okay.
transmission lines,
Yeah.
and things like that.
Yeah, where you
So-
see them elsewhere when you're driving up to the main pike, you'll see them on the transmission lines. But 160.
There's another raptor that we're focused on right now, though, at Fish and Game's request, and that's northern harriers.
Okay.
Okay, and their situation is considerably different than our recovering birds.
Okay.
We have, there are on our state endangered list now, northern
Okay.
harriers. Last year, I had a crew of 2 that documented 10 territories in the state,
Okay.
almost all in Coas County.
I was going to say along the Connecticut River primarily,
almost
maybe.
all in Colebrook and
Yeah,
Stewartstown
okay,
and that area
yeah.
of the state, and produced at least 9 young.
Okay.
This year, the same crew is out again. We only documented 2 successful
Wow.
nests and 3 young.
Not good news there.
And that might have to do with precipitation.
Okay.
Because
All
we
right.
had nests that failed this year.
Okay. Yeah.
So-
All right.
Anyway, so that's our big worry, is that we're going to lose the state's harrier population, partly due to habitat change that's natural progression
Okay.
of field to forest, but also because of subdividing large parcels up into home lots and things
Right.
with grass instead of brush.
Okay.
So that's another issue.
Well, I was out at let's see, Rice Lake in Minnesota last week and had several harriers I was watching there. That was kind of cool. I haven't seen one in a long time, so I got to watch some harriers last week myself.
That's great.
How about some of the other birds that I'm sure you're well aware of, like out at the Owls of Shows? We've got some terns now. Again, I worked with Audubon early on. I schlepped the crew. I borrowed the Marine Division boat and we put the decoys out and had the sounds of terns blasting. And I think the first year maybe a dozen pairs or less nested. And how about a history? What's happened there?
Well, I don't know that as well, but I know that for years now the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department has relied on the Shoals Marine Lab
Okay.
to have a crew monitoring and managing the tern
Okay.
population on the Isles of Shoals. particularly on White and
Yep,
Seavey Island.
Yep.
And I know that the number of common terns there numbers close to 3,000
Okay.
now. And there are 2 other species of tern, Arctic and roseate,
Nice.
that nest there in much smaller numbers.
Okay, and those are both federally endangered? Where are they?
Again, I'm not
You
sure
don't-
exactly the
okay.
classification of each one.
Okay.
What's interesting to me as a raptor biologist is this spring, the tern biologists contacted me multiple times with a problem peregrine falcon
Get out.
that was spending time at the colony and creating a lot of disruption. So, not only disruption, but it was eating terns and other birds as well.
But you got 3,000 pairs. You got some spare terns out there.
Yeah, it's what they do. Though.
Yep,
They eat birds. So.
How has climate change impacted some of these raptors? You see any influence there from our warming world? Or?
Yes and no. In the extent that our precipitation events are a little more extreme than they may have been in the past.
Okay.
I'm pointing back to harriers now. We think that the heavy July rains that we had may have caused some trouble for our nesting harriers because they had young in the nest at that point of the season. But in general, our birds of prey are generalists, and they are highly adaptable to changes in environment.
Right.
And they adapt to habitat changes in many cases, and pick new nest sites that are that may not have been common 100 years ago because of human population changes. What I'm saying is they are relatively flexible. And so,
well, you see all kinds of nests in Florida, so it's.
I don't think we're going to see, and they're generalists. They nest across a large geographic area. I don't think you're going to see major changes in our birds of prey with climate change. Some of our specialists that have really small niches, I think, are going to be where you're going to have the issue. So.
How about any other birds? Any words of wisdom for now? Oh yeah, we have this disease sweeping up the east coast of mid-Atlantic a while ago, and New Hampshire Fish and Game, obviously Audubon, we're asking people to make sure no bird feeders, take down the bird baths, wash them and put them away. What's the word there now?
Well, it's unclear whether this disease of songbirds especially is occurring in northern New England today, but as we can see with other diseases, including COVID, no place is really immune if the disease is spreading. I'm not certain whether this is a virus or not, this particular disease. But the point is we want to keep from concentrating all sorts of birds in one small area, because it's that concentration point that allows diseases to spread. So even though we're not clear on its occurrence currently in New Hampshire, prevention is a good idea. So
social distance our birds.
Keep the birds at social distance.
So keep the bird baths put away.
Yeah.
And bird feeders, no.
And wait until the bears go to sleep to put your bird feeders
Put your bird feeders back out. All right, well, that's awesome. I can't believe we have 160 pairs of ospreys, and
give or take.
Right, give or take. But what wonderful numbers! What a wonderful experience it must have been for you to be part of that successful restoration effort.
I wouldn't trade it for anything. Thank you.
You've done a good job. We appreciate your hard work. Awesome. Hey, if you haven't been to New Hampshire Audubon here in Concord, there are awesome trails. Look at this garden. Pollinator garden. Yeah, and come on, stop in at Audubon and have a look and enjoy the scenery here. It's quiet and peaceful. It's free. Just come here and have a walk around and take a look at the bald eagle over there and the 2 barred owls up close and in person. And guess what? The bald eagle will talk to you if you go in there. Yeah, awesome place. What great news about our raptors in New Hampshire. Thank you very much, Chris. I do appreciate it. This is wildlife biologist Eric Orr for What's Wild in New Hampshire.